United head into their third game on pre-season with 2 wins so far, scoring 4 goals in both games. Me and Abdul are going to take a look at our next game against Crystal Palace. Yes, guys, welcome to Stretford Paddock. I am Alex, and I am joined today with Abdul. How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Not too bad. It's absolutely hot out there.
It's way too hot in it. I'm in flip-flops today because it's just not. It's nowhere near. Can't even put socks on today. It's so hot in Manchester. It's going to get 34 today, like 38 tomorrow, something like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
More hotter than it is in Australia right now. We're going to take a look at this game, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. But to start with, we're going to talk about that man on the thumbnail, and Jason Sanchez is what he was known on this channel for so long. I've even called him that. But Jadon Sancho, has he been the best player on tour so far for Manchester United?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think he's been the one that showed the most. I think there's been a couple of standout players. You know, Anthony Martial's done his thing. He's scored. His general play has been pretty good. But I think Sancho's just been a constant threat throughout the whole tour. One of the things as well, I think, is the whole relationship that he's building with Delo out on the right. You know, and I always say this with Sancho, you always want players to attack space, because when you're playing alongside Sancho, if you're attacking that space, you're either dragging the defender with you and then creating an opportunity for him to pass, which, for example, the goal before Martial's goal was exactly that. And at the same time, you're leaving the defender in a 1v1 situation with Sancho, which is obviously most of the time is going to rinse him. Yeah. A lot of the time last season, we were allowing teams to just double up, triple up sometimes on Jadon Sancho, and it became quite easy to defend against him. But that means that the movement around him isn't right. And I think we've seen that with Diogo Dalot, which obviously it means it's about building relationships and constantly attacking space around him, and you'll just see him continue to flourish. But yeah, he's been brilliant to watch, and he's proven he can play on the right, which we know, but you know, people seem to refuse to think that.
Yeah, because I think people were looking at United for so long, and under Solskjaer at the start had very, very direct wingers. You know, you look at Marcus Rashford, you had even Dan James in there. They were very direct. They were very running behind. That was kind of their role. Even Elanga, when he broke into the team, that was his job. I think people going, Jadon Sancho isn't doing that. But he's not that electric pace, chip running behind and running behind. He's someone that's going to cut in, and he needs runners around him, and he needs a bit of pace. And you're seeing him kind of grow into it. I think that we were talking to Dre, who's on the channel, who said that, you know, he's done this research into the translation from the German league into the Premier League. There's such a drop-off to start with in terms of numbers. There's an acclimatising to do. And we saw that with Sancho last year, where he just wasn't quite... He wasn't at it, the team wasn't at it. But now you've got to expect Sancho to have a big season. And look, he got paid a lot of money for. He was pursued for so long by Manchester United. He needs to have a big season this season, doesn't he?
Like I said, for Sancho, I'm fine with him. What he's doing so far, he's proven that he can play on the right, which he's done. It doesn't matter where you play him, 10, right, left, just get movement around him and you'll see him at his best. He's got an eye for a pass. He can take a man on, can drag defenders away. So, yeah, I'm happy so far with what Sancho's showing in pre-season.
Yeah, he's looking very good. Now, on the bar above me here, it says no De Jong. Now, the reason we want to talk about this, now look, we aren't going to get into the transfer rumours and all that kind of stuff in this show, but De Jong looks like Erik ten Hag's number one target in that midfield, and he's a midfielder we've not got any replacement for, really. We've not got that kind of player at this moment in time. But he's not really playing, you know, a player that you kind of go, well, he's going to drop out and he's going to go straight into there when we get, if we get him. You looked at under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he kind of did this, I meant with Andreas Pereira, where he was nowhere near the level of Bruno, but you knew that as soon as Bruno went in, Pereira comes out, Bruno goes in there, and it's a like-for-like replacement. It's just the quality goes up 10x. We're not really trying that at the minute. We're playing a lot of Freddie McTominay. What do you think, you know, what do you reckon the plan B is going to be for if Erik ten Hag, if he doesn't get Frankie de Jong in, if we don't manage to sign a midfielder? Do you think there's someone in the squad that can do it? And what kind of combinations do you want to see maybe in this game against Crystal Palace and going forward?
So, to be honest, I think you make a very good point. I was having to think of this because when I was watching us that day, I feel like with Freddie McTominay, I might not be on the whole bandwagon of these guys are completely useless. Like, I think a lot of managers would see uses for them, and that's why even though we changed 3 or 4 managers, they have been playing. When I look at those two, I feel like someone has to be alongside one of them. Yeah. The way you set up. For example, I think when you watch that Melbourne game, the first half, it feels like the ball comes into the centre then it like takes quite a bit to then get switched out to the left and right. And we've seen Ten Hag in training, and when you actually watch his Ajax team, it's about if it's shut off on one side, you quickly switch it to the other side, and we don't see that with this team. And I feel like with Eriksen coming in, he's got that. I know he's not comparing to Paul Scholes, but he has got that touch of like he can drop deep and put a ball wide and find that pass and switch it quickly on the turn. And I feel like depending on what happens with Frankie, if Frankie's not joining, I'd like to see more combinations of a Zidane Iqbal, Scott McTominay, for example. I've got that in this game. Eriksen, McTominay. The issue that I have with Fred, and I think Fred was our best midfielder last season, to be honest, and one of our better players, if not the best player for United last season. So I'm not like having a dig at him or anything like that. I feel like Fred's best position is in a high eight, aggressive position, winning the ball back, being in the final third, as we've seen in a lot of those games. Best example is probably that Arsenal game at home where he was making that inside run for Jadon Sancho on the left-hand side. He was, winning the ball back. I think the game even before that, I think Carrick understood that role very well, just from the three games we've seen. The game before that was Villarreal, where he'd won the ball back and then Ronaldo had scored the chip. So that is Fred's best position. And I think from what we're seeing from Ten Hag at Ajax, there are times where he has played the midfield three, and I think that's where Fred would fit in better. McTominay, I would have liked us. I seen a clip earlier of Chris Kamara. Boubacar Kamara for Aston Villa, and that's someone that I really wanted us to sign because I thought you could just slot him in with anyone. But unfortunately, I think obviously as the season starts, you're going to need a bit of a presence in there. You're going to need someone who doesn't do a lot on the ball, just allows to get Frankie or Eriksen to get on the ball and do their thing. So maybe with the coaching and stuff like that. In terms of stylistically having a double pivot, I don't see like Eriksen and Fred being a good fit. I don't know. It could work out. But McTominay, you could see him be more of the simple guy, defensive guy. But that switch in midfield has to be a lot quicker. That's what Savage and Iqbal did very well when they'd come on the pitch. And that's why our fans enjoyed watching them. Everything they did, you see Iqbal when he did the spin, that was great, having piece of skill, but that's not what I focus on. Once he's done the spin, he's away, he's facing goal, and there's a ball into Marcus Rashford. Again, that's one of the reasons I think at times, not last season or the season before, you'd like to see more of Marcus Rashford, but the ball doesn't come into him quick enough. And we see like Salah's, the Mane's, Son's, those types of plays, the ball needs to come in quickly. And when you got Fred and McTominay, they can't turn and face and make them types of passes. They're not those types of plays. So it's about fitting in the profiles. And to finish off my point, I'd like to see the rest of the pre-season. I'd like to see, obviously, hopefully Eriksen comes in for the ones where they're going to play in Europe and whatnot. I'd like to see him maybe partnered with someone else in midfield, maybe Jimmy Garner getting in the mix. And because I just feel like that switch again. And Iqbal's the one that I want to see next game. I'd like to see Iqbal, McTominay, or even Iqbal, Fred.
Yeah, you maybe want to see Iqbal in a position where he's not playing with, again, the such rotated team. I think that would be nice to see. Like you said, I think he matches that profile a little bit better. Look, he's not Frankie de Jong. He's a young lad and he's doing extremely well. But I do think maybe he matches that profile a little bit. Let's get into some predicted 11s. Let's start with yours, Abdul. What do you reckon he's going to start with in this game?
I think in goal, I can see us mixing up again, maybe a couple of changes. The reason I've got Zidane Iqbal, and again, I'm going to continue talking about the midfield point, is the fact that I feel like from what he's shown so far, if we're going into the season and he said he's going to loan 2 out of those 3 out of the Savage, Iqbal and Mejbri, I think it'll be the other 2 and he'd keep Iqbal from what we've seen so far. I've honestly been caught by surprise properly with him because
with how good he's been.
Because he seems to understand space really well. Like he gives the ball, then runs into the space to pick it up, and he's very mature with the way he spins off. He understands pressure. That is a very, very, very rare thing to have at that level with the physique he has. And I feel like, I always seen him as more of an attacking flair player, and I think when you watch him when he's younger, that's how you see him. But he's been very good under pressure, on the turn, on a spin. Maybe that's something he's worked on in pre-season, behind the scenes. So, and I think his physicality as well surprised me. I thought it'd be easier to get knocked off, but he seems to know how to use his body. So that's someone that's the one that stands out where he's not really a first teamer. The reason I've got Donny van de Beek as well, other than Bruno, like outside of Bruno for this one, I think with Donny, it's like he's been coming off the bench. He's been playing with the heavily rotated team. I think this is the game where Donny's might even spoken to Ten Hag and gone, you know what, I need to be playing around the starters. And you want to see how he does, because we know how Sancho and Donny play. Because of Donny, the whole space thing, when they've had 3-4 minutes on the pitch off the bench, you instantly see an impact. That Atalanta away, Villa away last season, games where we were poor and we drew in those games, they had about 4 or 5 minutes, if that, together, and you instantly seen a bit of connection there. So that's Donny's got to get his chance there. I got Malacia at left back. Again, I still think Luke Shaw is going to start the season. And rightly so, to be honest, because if you can get Luke Shaw up to that level that we know he had in and around the Euros for England and for United in that season from a couple of seasons back, really absolutely class, complete fullback, gives you everything, going up and down the pitch, has that relationship as well with Marcus Rashford, which is a big help, because if you can get Diogo Dalot, and now move on to Diogo Dalot again, I said that at the start, if you can get that relationship built, it's very important having that understanding. It's about, with Rashford and Sancho, it's about players attacking space, giving them more time to be direct. Rashford more off the ball, Sancho more on the ball, but that requires players and fullbacks understanding inverted and outside runs. But I'd like to see Malacia as well, getting a chance to work with Marcus Rashford on the left. Anthony Martial up front, brilliant finish the other day. Proper box 9 type finish, which I liked, being in the right time at the right place. Yep. And that's what you want to see of him. And I said that, I think, before the Liverpool game, when me and Ronaldo sat here, and I was saying how I think he's got the balance, Martial, of keeping the ball tight, and it allows Bruno to take more of the risk and more of, like, when he loses the ball. And I feel like because he drops into that area, we've seen him come short a couple of times in the Melbourne game. Bruno just runs off him into the central area to score. Hopefully that's something that Donny can do, because Donny can sometimes ghost in behind defences and make runs that you just can't catch. We've seen those with his goals in the Champions League when Ajax went on that run and whatnot. So that's hopefully something that Martial can show that he's done with Bruno, that he can do with Donny. And with the defence, I'm just going to switch it up, different partnership, Maguire, Varane.
I like it.
And De Gea. So it's a big mixture of starters with players that have got a point to prove in Iqbal and Malacia.
And we'll go on to my team, and mine's relatively similar, to be honest. I've got Lindelof and Maguire in there. Still think Varane's going to have a bit of a break. I think that you talked about partnerships. I've gone with Malacia and Wan-Bissaka just because he's kind of kept the partnerships the same, hasn't he, so far? He's kept Luke Shaw and Dalot, and then he's done he had Laird and Malacia. I think he's going to maybe get Wan-Bissaka some more minutes. You're right in terms of I'd like to maybe see that combination with Sancho and Dalot build, but maybe let's see what Wan-Bissaka can do. Again, it's predicted. I just think he's going to go Fred and McTominay. Like you said, I'd like to see Zidane Iqbal in there, but I'm going to go with Fred and McTominay. And then the front four, I've gone with the same kind of thing with you. I think Donny van der Beek has a massive point to prove. He has to kind of step up. I think those 45 minutes, yes, he's been in the rotated team, but sometimes you don't know he's there. He just kind of ghosts in these games, and whether that's the players around him and things like that, I don't know. But he just needs to put his imprint on it a little bit more.
Have more of an impact depending on what players they have around him than others. Some players are like, give them the ball, like Bruno, they'll do it in any team.
Yeah.
Some players, when they've actually got the right players around them, they look some of the best on the pitch, and I think Donny's falls into that, because it's like Sancho, where he had some of them frustrating games last season. Yeah. Just needs people to move for him.
He does, and I'm hoping that's the case. Like I said, Malacia, I'd like to see him alongside a more settled back four, settled partnership. He's played his left centre-back's been Alex Telles for so far. So seeing Lindelof and Maguire, it might be Lindelof for Varane, depending on fitness. Going back to goalkeeper, I've got Tom Heaton in there. We're not 100% how fit David De Gea is, whether he's back. And also, it wouldn't surprise me to see one of the young lads in Bishop or Kovar given a chance. He's played 2 games so far, only used the 2 keepers. Maybe just gives them a bit of a run out. But yeah, that is my team. Relatively strong. I think that front three, I think it's going to start the Premier League with everything that's going on with Ronaldo. So what, keep that one going. Let's move on and talk a little bit about Crystal Palace. Obviously, beat us last game of the season, played pretty well against us. We were very, very poor. They had a surprisingly good season. I think they were, with Vieira coming in, I think people were kind of questioning, was he going to be strong enough to kind of... They clung on with Roy Hodgson in there. And then you see Vieira come in, relatively inexperienced manager. I think people were kind of going, this could be it for them. They're going from the stability of Roy Hodgson that is, I'm just going to keep you in the Premier League, to trying something different. But they looked really good last season, didn't they, Crystal Palace?
Yeah, they did. I think I was quite surprised with the way they played. I didn't think Vieira would do very well in the Premier League. But I think from what we're seeing, this team, you got Wilfried Zaha, who's obviously their main man. to watch out for. Hudson-Odoi didn't really start his career at Palace properly. Like, he got a couple of goals at the start, but he's someone that I feel like could really do it this season. But yeah, overall, again, there's a couple of players in that team. Elise, like, I'm very, very impressed with him. He's someone actually that I feel like if we ever needed a right winger, when we were going for Anthony, I'd rather pay half the money and get someone like Elise. So he's someone that I'm watching out for, who's impressed me when he was in the Championship, impressing me in the Premier League a lot. He's in that Mahrez ilk where, you know, he goes in and out with the ball, very, very clean with his left foot. So yeah, it's a nice challenge. I'm happy that we're facing a team like Palace. I think Liverpool might have beaten them that day 2-0.
Yeah.
They had a game against Liverpool, but yeah, it's a very good challenge for United.
It's probably gonna be our toughest game. Again, we obviously play Liverpool, but first game of pre-season for both teams, very rotated. I think we've been doing a bit more training than them. This is two teams that are now well into pre-season. These guys have all had 2 or 3 weeks of training. Like you said, they've had the game against Liverpool. Fitness is probably going to be up there now, so this is probably going to be our toughest game. Let's move straight on to score predictions then. What do you think in this game? Let's go for a full 90-minute score prediction. None of this half stuff. Let's go for a 90-minute score prediction against Crystal Palace.
I'm going to go 4-1 Man United. I think we're going to have another 4-goal game. I think this time again, Sancho, Rashford, Martial involved again in the goals. And hopefully Donny starts and gets something as well, because, you know, final point on Donny, I feel like regardless of what happens with Bruno and who starts the season, we're going to have options there. So I hope he starts and he scores as well.
That'd be really good. I think it's going to be a close game. I think I'm going to go 2-1 United. Can't predict a loss in pre-season. I'm going to go 2-1 United. Like you said, I'm hoping Rashford gets on the score sheet again. I want to see him do it. And then, like I said, I think hopefully Donny van der Beek gets on the score sheet. That'd be nice to see. Right, that is gonna be all from us. Make sure you'll get your 11s into the comments. What did you make of ours? Are we completely wrong? Get in the comments and let us know who you think's gonna start against Crystal Palace. Get your score predictions in. Send any clips into paddockmatchday@gmail.com. As you can see there, you can join our exclusive community group chat. Just join as a member. You get added in. You can use the sign up link. Get added into there. Get involved in the chat in there and send in your predictions to that group chat. Also, make sure you're checking out the rest of the stuff on the channel. The lads have been over in Melbourne. They're going to be in Perth. They've got all sorts out there. So make sure you're checking out what they've been doing whilst out on pre-season tour. Thank you very much for joining me today, Abdul.
Pleasure.
I've been Alex. We'll see you for the watch along tomorrow. Laters.